Hello and welcome to the Still Standing series. I'm your host, Coach Violet Coots, and I'm happy to have my special guest with me today, Greer Jones. I'm a Christian life coach, equipping and empowering individuals to live in their true identity and be who God created them to be. I love for you to grab my free biblical affirmation cards so you can start renewing your mind today and finding that freedom. And if you're feeling stuck in any area of your life, schedule a free breakthrough session with me. The link will be in the show description. Hi, Greer. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I am good. I'm good. So, so tell our audience where you're joining me from today.
Yeah. So I live in England. I am American. I like to always clarify. I was born and raised in Seattle-ish area. And then about almost 15 years ago, I moved over to the UK to work with the church there and then I thought I was coming for a year. Here I am. 15 years later, so I've now married a Brit. We have two kids and we have two kids and two dogs. And yeah, we've made home here in England. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. I always kind of say, don't tell God you'll only do something for a year because you'll end up doing it for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's kind of like that never say never, right?
Yes.
Because he'll say, huh, let's see about that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thankful to have you here with me today, and just share your story with us. Share what God's laid on your heart.
Yeah, so like I said, I moved to England to work for a and met my husband. We've now been married 10 years, almost 10 years in a couple weeks. And we now have two kids, and our oldest son has been diagnosed autistic ADHD. And I would have said for quite a few years before his kind of diagnosis, I would have just, yeah, I kind of noticed things. I think he was born a year before COVID happened, which in the UK, when COVID happened, the world literally shut down. We were in lockdown. We were um, not quite obviously locked in our houses, but the parks were closed, public places were closed. You had online shopping. So it was very much the world lockdown. So it was for most of COVID, it was me and him because my husband is a nurse. So he was very busy working.
Oh,
So yeah, so when we were kind of coming out of that, and just seeing how he was reacting to things and processing the world, it was just kind of different than what other, his peers were doing. And it was actually kind of fast forward a little bit, a year ago today, that we got some really difficult news. And I would just say it was like a tornado just went through our life and
mm,
just kind of just wrecked everything. All of our foundations were just blown away.
mm,
Um, and I remember the Lord saying to me, it was about 24 hours after it kind of everything had kind of been blown away. The Lord saying to me, Greer, you have an option to rebuild the life that you've had, or take these pieces and rebuild something that will fit your family and make something beautiful. I remember it being him saying, make something beautiful. And it was very clear. Like I always kind of say, the Lord, I do hear the Lord's voice. I know we all hear it differently, but for me, it is just this kind of clear thought voice that comes into my head. It's kind of, that's how I
right.
explain it. It's kind of weird, but that's how I explain it.
Yeah.
And so it just was, I also think about someone asked me once of a slight tangent, but how do I know it's God's voice? And I said, how scripture tells us like his sheep know the shepherd's voice.
Yeah.
That's just how I know. It's just that the sheep knows the shepherd's voice. So, anyways, so he was very clear. And so of course I was like, oh, I want to build something beautiful. I want to build something beautiful. And so for the last year, we've just been unpicking, which sounds weird to say, unpicking to build something, but taking those pieces, unpicking kind of the things that were left and building this kind of new life for us, which is very weird to say. But that idea that, we because of my son's needs, because of who God's created him to be, our life looks different. We don't have, he does go to a mainstream or public school, but he has extra support. So I work completely from home now, so I can go in and help him when he needs it. Our life looks very different in that I now meet with a lot of mums or moms who are raising children who are neurodivergent as well, which I never thought I would be doing that. But I remember one day going to the school and saying, I know there has to be other moms like me who are raising children with additional needs. How do I meet them? Like I literally said that to one of the teachers, and she was like, oh, we could do a coffee morning. And I was like, great, let's do it. And so just kind of getting to share our story with these other moms, because so much of kind of, I don't want to say the whole of the last year, but so much of it, particularly the first few months of last year, I just felt so overwhelmed and so lonely, and so lost. And to be honest with you, it's because of Jesus that I could continue, like I could move forward, and because I knew the hope that I have in Jesus, that whatever we were going through was temporary. And I knew, like I said, that he was calling me to build something beautiful. And so it's just that idea that like because of Jesus, I could do this. And so I
Right.
just want to, kind of help moms to see, and I mean, and dads, but I'm not quite a dad, so I don't have that perspective, but that kind of help moms to see like there is hope in this, because so many moms I've heard over, I've talked to over the last year have talked about how it's hopeless, how they feel overwhelmed, how they feel like,
Mm.
one mom described it such a great way of being like kind of transported into a pitch black dark maze and told, now you need to get out of it, and not being able to see um her way out, and so just being able to kind of have these conversations with these moms and share the hope that I have has just been amazing. It's been
Right.
so encouraging. Don't get me wrong, it's still hard. It's still like overwhelming sometimes. But
But
it's just been,
you're a light
yeah.
to them. You're a light. You
Yeah.
know the light. You have the light. Jesus says, that's one of the things he talks about us being a light. Uh, and uh, and so he's using you in a beautiful way that he's guiding you, but then he's also, then you're being able to help guide others, not just through
Yeah.
that, but to
Yeah.
him as well.
Yeah. And it's been really fun to have these conversations, and even working with our church. So we go to quite a small local church, and just saying, hey, these things we need to change, or like, can we adapt? Because a lot of times it's not a change, it's just an adaptation to help our
Right.
son so that he can, be involved in the worship in the children's groups, and
Mhm.
it's been really amazing to see like our church that we're at now has been so welcoming and so like, yes, let's do it, and um, has been just so caring to us. But it's also meant that because I know our church is so welcoming, excuse me, in that way, like I've invited these moms to come to different things, and there's been a few who have now classed our church as the neurodivergent church, which I love. I think that's like the best. I'm like, yes, let's be known as that. Um, because it's such a big thing, and something that, as again, having these conversations and just sharing more openly kind of online as well. Just realizing as well, like how, so our son is autistic ADHD, but how it affects our whole family. So, it affects, you know, my relationship with my husband, and then we have another son, but also how, my parents, how, it affects them. Maybe not quite on every day, but just kind of, if you think about all the kind of ripple effects that one diagnosis can have, and just the support needed,
Right.
it's actually a bigger thing than just saying, oh, one person. I think about my son, so yeah, take the example of my son and how it affects, I think I counted at one point, it affects 7 people on a day-to-day basis, in the sense of my family and just kind of who we have in our lives in the everyday. And then it affects about 20 people, kind of on the outer circles, maybe not every day, but, has how they relate to him or build relationship with him, or um, kind of the support we need or they need. And so, if you think about that, that's almost 30 people that one diagnosis kind of has that effect on. And so kind of also being able to take that as well of saying like, hey, like again, to not just to my church, but to the global church of like, hey, this is what it actually means when we say we're a neurodiverse family. This is what it means. And so it's been really fun to engage with those kind of conversations as well and have conversations with other Christian leaders around the world. So I say around the world, Spain, mostly America, England, and one in Australia, but that's still around the world.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, but,
Yeah.
just having even those conversations for the church to kind of start engaging with, I think I'm excited. I'm excited for what's to come. Not just for our family, but just as, like I said, the church globally to just really
Right.
start engaging on this kind of topic of neurodiversity and on how they can reach out, to their communities who have neurodiverse people in them and their families and kind of that wider support. So it's
Wow.
been crazy to think a year ago where my life was. And if you said to me a year ago, I'd be having these kind of conversations, I'd be sharing our life online, I have my own podcast, doing my own podcast. Like I probably would have laughed at you and just been like, yeah, no. But yeah, but how I'm so grateful for all of that though. And how, God has brought some beautiful moments and continues to. I know he'll continue to build in beautiful moments. So yeah,
Wow.
so that's our story. It's kind of a random twisty
No.
tailing story, but
But God is in that story, but God had to be in your life before this part of that story happened. So, do you mind sharing just a little bit? When did your relationship with God happen, and how is that? How has that helped you in this part of your story, in this chapter of your story?
yeah, so I grew up going to the church, like going to church. My family, both my parents are very active still in the church. And so I always say that Jesus became my friend when I was 5. I remember I don't know if it was 5, but it was around that time. But and the idea that I knew I just wanted Jesus to be my friend. That's kind of what the core memory for me is that I knew Jesus, I wanted Jesus to be my friend. I always say it was when I was baptized when I was 14. It was when I really started to have a relationship with Jesus, if that makes sense. That was when I owned it. That's when I was like, this is mine. This isn't just my parents' faith or something we do, but like this is what I wanted. Um, and then kind of from 13, I then went to a Christian university, which meant I had to take Bible classes, I had to attend chapel 3 times a week, which were again just really good foundations. I found just yeah, they really were moments where like life transitions, I think about university can be such a big transition.
Right.
And yeah, I was being forced to study the Bible, which sounds really bad to say forced, but it was so good. It was like I couldn't run from Jesus, if that makes sense. Like Jesus is still
Right.
my friend. um I even think back, I was talking to someone, another mom friend who's in the US and was asking if her church did Awana, which I remember growing up going to. And I remember there were some nights where I was like, oh, I can't believe I'm being forced to like memorize scripture. But it's actually such a great, again, that kind of solid foundation that I'm so grateful that I was quote unquote forced to do,
Right.
because it did lay a foundation. And um, you know, I've done a lot of work with churches, so part of my job is a children's and family minister. And I just always encourage like parents you know, who are like, oh, my kids just don't want to go. I don't want to force them. And I'm like, I'm so grateful my parents forced me. Like, they did it lovingly. I'm not saying you need to like drag them in, like, your child, but that like equally, I'm so grateful that the rule in our house has been and always will be, if you're at my parents' house on a Sunday, you are expected to go to church. And so the idea that, yeah, like that that's the rule. That was always the rule. And I'm grateful for that because in those key transitions, I had a good foundation.
Mhm.
And I again remember being 18 and I dislocated my knee. And again, there's been quite a few times I've like, as I'm talking with you, realizing there's like these kind of why fork in the road moments. But again, the Lord just saying, so I dislocated my knee. I was told I couldn't play sports. I was looking to go do some sports at university or college. Um, and I was told I couldn't. And again, just having that kind of conversation with the Lord of Him going, you can choose to be sad about this, or you can choose for this to be an opportunity for you to grow and like let this be, kind of basically like not letting it define you. And I remember, unfortunately, a friend also had a similar injury. It happened a few weeks after mine. And and I don't know, I don't want to judge her life, but I remember thinking like it really consumed her, and she was heartbroken over it, and I look at her life and just how different it is to mine, and that's not a bad comparison. I'm not trying to
Right.
say like, but I just think the Lord brought that to mind about a year after my knee injury of like, yeah, you chose for this to be a growing opportunity. You chose to follow me and trust me, and look where you are versus, you know, this other person kind of just dealing with some other things. And you chose it not to consume you. Um,
Well, we
and so,
hear,
yeah, just having it's only because I had those foundations from
yeah,
when I was 5 that, I can have these moments with God and wrestle with Him. And I think what's key to me and what I really hope to, pass on to my children is the relationship side. God wants to have a relationship with you. And I I see Him as my father, but I also see Him as my friend. And that's been something that's run through my life, my whole life, is, that idea that I know Jesus is my friend.
that's beautiful.
Um, and I know that He has my back when I need it. I know I think about, my best friend. She tells me some hard truths sometimes. She tells me, probably shouldn't have said that or reacted that way, or, this is what you should do instead, and I just think like that to me I don't want to minimize God, but that's kind of how, for me, that relationship with God is He tells me, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. Or, hey, I got your back. Like, like yeah. So yeah, and just thinking about how it kind of started from when I was 5 and now I'm 35. So,
That's
um,
awesome. Yeah, that's beautiful. And you're talking about the choices and how many times we hear, we go through something and we can either get bitter or we get better. And stuff. So going through hard things, but we still have that choice of, we don't have the choice. We don't always have a choice of what we go through or what's something that happens to us, but how we respond to that. And, and again, you just kind of reinforce that your background, your relationship, and that's so important that it was a relationship. It wasn't just it wasn't religion, it wasn't a rule, it wasn't something you just had to do, but that true relationship. And you were able then you know, to go on and grow and do and be better and uh and know that hey, life isn't ending. Um didn't go as I planned, but he always has those good plans for us. So he has things
mm,
out there and stuff. So I think that's important, to be able to share that and to say that because it is that relationship. It's that one-on-one relationship with him. And being that honest, letting him talk to you honestly, but you being able to talk with him honestly, because I'm sure with what you've gone through and not just with your son, but in anybody's situation, sometimes we just need to say, I don't like this. I don't
yes,
like this. Didn't want to be here. I'm struggling. But, but the good thing is that we can have those real conversations with God. And,
yes,
you
yeah,
know, we can have them and his shoulders are big enough to handle them. And he doesn't love us any less. He doesn't
yes,
love us any
yeah.
less
And
because of
that's like something that I don't know if it was just the church I grew up in, but like I never struggled to tell God my, I can always say my truth, quote unquote, like, my honesty.
Mm.
Um, and I know friends who have, and that's their journey. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's something that I've always just been like, no, he can take it. Like, he can take it. And sometimes it's me who struggle to be on, like, it's not I'm struggling to be honest with him. It's just like I just am struggling to just fully understand what's happening.
Right.
And just being like, I don't even know what's happening. Because like you
Yeah.
said, there have been many moments where I have said, I don't want this. Like, this is not what I had planned for my life or even
Right.
for this week, or like this month. And it's just being willing to tell him that. Something else that, as you were speaking, brought to mind was when I was 13, when I decided, so this is before I got baptized, but kind of made that decision to get baptized. I remember saying to the Lord, I will always worship you in all circumstances. Which I think to my 13-year-old self, I'm like, oh, little did she know, like all the things that she would say that for. But it's something that I have found defeats the devil very quickly is my worship. And even there have literally been moments where I remember there was a moment in my life where I literally just said, Lord, I'm worshiping you. I'm worshiping you. Like I just closed my eyes and just said it over and over. I did not feel like it. I was angry and I was on the path to bitterness. But I literally just closed my eyes and just said over and over, I will worship you. I will worship you. I will worship you. And like there's been several moments where I've had to say that, but like I remember in that moment it was it was as if like the devil was trying to get in and he just couldn't, because I was saying that I was saying, no,
Right.
Lord, I will worship you, and he just couldn't. And I it might sound strange, but I literally could feel like it was like he was fleeing. He was like, oh no, okay, I can't make the situation worse. Like, and
Mhm.
did it make that situation instantly better? No, but it also just gave me a perspective of like, God is in this. God is here. I'm worshiping him because he knows my good, like he is for me. And I just think that has also helped my perspective a lot of times of who God is, of like, if I'm worshiping him, even if it's literally me just saying, I will worship you,
Right.
it still helps, just that idea of, yeah, when we go through the hard times, like that kind of perspective of who God is, and knowing he can take the hard stuff, and knowing it's for our good. I think that's,
Right.
yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, throughout your life, but and been especially throughout this journey, do you have like certain scriptures that's kind of these are my anchor scriptures
Yeah.
that you go back to? Uh,
Yes. So Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to give you now I'm on pressure now. Plans to give you hope in a future, plans to make you prosper. That's been a life verse since I was 13, probably, maybe. Like that's just always followed me. And it's given me an anchor. I always call it my anchor verse, because it's helped me when I feel like I'm like, Lord, these plans do not feel like they're gonna help me. Like, how are you giving me a future in these plans? Um, but yeah, just giving me yeah, it's been a good anchoring point for me. The other one that the Lord's brought to mind more recently, well, probably about 9 months ago, which I'm horrible at the address, so forgive me, but
that's okay.
it's that
Me too.
idea of like, don't despise the small beginnings.
Mhm.
I want to say it's in like Zephaniah or something like that, but um, yeah, I'm sure Google can find
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
but
we'll find it.
um, just that idea that, as we've been kind of rebuilding our life over the last year and looking at what works for our family, um, just knowing that he's in every little step, and how we've decided to take a little step every day for the last year and how far we've come.
Mhm.
Um, I would say our life has been, probably a 180 from where we were a year ago. Which again, that's not to say we've not had bad days and not had, we are all human, but just that
Right.
like idea that we are in a completely different place, and that's because we've taken small steps. And so, yeah, the Lord brought that kind of verse into mind and into kind of our reality over the last few months.
That's good. That's good. So, obviously you're meeting more and more moms who struggle, whose children struggle because of that diagnosis, um and just the reality of everyday life, and everything. So what encouragement, what advice or what encouragement maybe do you want to leave with, with moms or dads, whoever's listening here, but that, they're fighting, they're advocating for their children, and and it's kind of probably like a uphill battle, I'm sure, a lot of days, because I'm sure a lot of it's having to get education out there of,
Mm.
what is this about, and what do we need to do, and how can things change to help and be better for them. So, what are some things that you might want to encourage them with or leave them with?
The first thing I just want everyone to know, no matter if you're raising a neurodivergent child or not, but is that you're not alone. Like, I think that the devil wants you to think you're an island, and
That's true.
like you're not. I just want you to know that, like, and if that, can feel, I don't know, for me, yeah, I felt so isolated and so alone, even though I have friends around me,
Right.
and just felt like, yeah, such sadness about that. But how when I started talking and started sharing and just asking, like, I mean, literally going to the school and was like, I just want to meet other people like me. Like how so many people kind of came out of the woods, I like to say, and how I've kind of just built a strong kind of village around us. And so I just want to say, like, first, you're not alone. And then secondly, just, yeah, if I know it can be scary and overwhelming sometimes, but just asking, like, hey, does anyone want to do this? Like, whatever that is. So for me, it was a coffee morning. I just said, hey, does anyone want to do a coffee morning? I'd love to just have a chat, share experiences. I had no clue how many people were going to come. I was like, will I be the only one? Like I might be the only one. Thankfully people came. There was actually, I think there was like 10 moms. I had originally opened it up to just all parents because I was just like, I'll take anyone. But it happened to be all moms, which I'm slightly grateful for and feel like that was the Lord. But yeah, there was 10 of us, I think, nine or 10 of us in the end. Um and we've started a WhatsApp group from that. We encourage each other, kind of throughout. We've added some more mums to the group as well, but it was just kind of being willing to ask, like, would anyone want to do this? And I definitely feel like the Lord honored that and just, was like, yeah, I see that you're trying to make friends basically.
Right.
Like, so let me bring you some women who can encourage you. And yeah, I think it was interesting as well talking to another friend, and how just I was like, oh, I just feel so encouraged by these women, and knowing that I don't think any of them in the group are actually Christians, and just how like I don't. It was something that someone said to me, and I kind of reflected on was like, I I'm not meeting with them to get spiritual input, so it's okay that they're not Christians. Like you need to have, I guess, like array of friends, which is something that I've just kind of been recently kind of been thinking about of like, oh, actually, yeah, I don't lean on them for spiritual input. That's another group of friends who I then don't always rely on them to understand what I'm going through as a parent. It's kind of that idea of like, it's okay to have friends who aren't
Right.
aren't everything, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think those would be the top two things is, yeah, you're not alone. And then just, yeah, step out in faith and ask, like, even if it's just one friend, if you ask one friend, hey, do you know anyone? It doesn't have to be the school or you know, doesn't have to be church or school or wherever, you know, it could just even be hey, do you know anyone who's in this situation? Or are you in this situation? I think just even being vulnerable,
Right.
um, breaks down a lot of barriers.
Yeah. I was just sitting there thinking, and like you said, just being willing to reach out, and
Yeah.
sometimes I think fear stops us a lot of times from reaching out, will I be rejected? Will anybody, how? And, and maybe even, some pride can keep us from, I don't want anybody to know what I'm struggling with and everything. But we can see that, when we reach out, because we're made for community,
Hmm.
regardless, we're designed for community. So we're designed to be in there to helping each other and encouraging each other and stuff. So, just taking that initiative to to take that step and like you said, take that step on faith, and then God will
Yeah.
God will open that up. Well, that's just, it's been wonderful talking with you, for sharing. I know there's a lot of others that struggle excuse me, struggle, and I think this will bring them hope, and encouragement, and maybe give them some ideas too of, hey, yeah, there's some, I could reach out. Maybe I need to reach out and not just kind of wait to see and everything, but be a light, because I can tell you're a light. You're a light to others and stuff. So that's wonderful. Thank you again for taking that time and just sharing with us, and getting some awareness out there too, and sharing not just how God has helped you, because we want to share that, but sharing the reality of um, of your world.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been such a pleasure to talk with you.
That's wonderful. I do want to remind everyone, I like to remind us every week, and leave with some encouraging words from Isaiah 43:2, that says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flame scorch you. And, it's just that reminder that we will go through things, but whatever we go through, God is with us, and he is there for us. And so I always want to leave that reminder. Um, I will also just remind everyone, if, again, if you're feeling stuck, you're needing someone to talk to, please reach out, get on my calendar. And if this episode has been beneficial to you, then please leave a comment, like, subscribe, share this if you know someone that this could be an encouragement to, because that's the whole thing. We want to encourage and lift each other up. So again, thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great day.